So the FBI is now warning retailers to prepare for more cyber attacks. This is luxury retailer Neiman Marcus says its holiday data breach was even worse than previously thought, now involving 1.1 million credit and debit cards. But retail hack attacks may only be the beginning. With more, let's bring in Kevin Freeman. He is the author of the book Game Plan, and Stephen Bucci. He is former Assistant Secretary of Defense and now at the Heritage Foundation. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. And Kevin, I want to start with you. You say that the technology used against Target has been used against the stock market and governments.
That's correct. In fact, 53 of the world's markets have been hacked in the past several years. There is a directed, focused efforts to bring down the financial system of the world, or steal secrets, or cyber espionage.
Steve, do you think that this is a growing threat, something that we are not talking about enough?
It's very much so a growing threat. People are getting more and more capable, and the infrastructure that we use to protect these things, everything from the swipe machines to the larger networks, are falling behind in their capabilities.
You know, Kevin, one of the things that you talk about in your latest book is that basically that because we have no more paper trading in the markets themselves, that other governments around the world, terrorist groups as well, could indeed take down the U.S. economy, and the fact that they could push the dollar down. And that is their goal. Can you explain that, please?
Certainly. General Keith Alexander recently said in a statement, there's no doubt that foreign governments, and if foreign governments have the capability, then terrorist groups do as well, could bring down our financial system if they made every effort to do it. So our dollar's at risk. We're in a global economic war. That's the bottom line. And other nations see our preeminent position in the world economy. They know they can't beat us militarily, so the way to beat us is either cyber or economic.
But also, Kevin, I mean, you know, we've got this NSA spying scandal hitting here in the U.S. Don't we do the same thing to other governments? Isn't it possible that the U.S. government is trying to manipulate other currencies? I asked this to you on a day when we've got global currencies really falling.
You know, that NSA scandal brings up some interesting points. It shows the vulnerability of technology from governments, number one. And number two, it shows the vulnerability to rogue employees like Snowden as a contractor. All secrets are eligible. You know, as for the United States, we have conducted economic warfare in the past. That's documented. It's mentioned in my book, and I cover it. And it's being waged against us. But most Americans are unaware of the economic war, so I wrote the book to help them learn how to protect themselves.
Steve, why do you think that this already hasn't happened? I mean, Kevin makes, you know, the assumption, or excuse me, that the point in his writings that basically that this is happening and that we need to be worried. But why hasn't this happened already, Steve? I mean, we are an open target when it comes to cyber attacks.
Well, it is happening every day, but it's mostly in terms of people stealing our intellectual property, stealing our money, stealing our identities. No one at this point has a real vested interest in collapsing the system because we are all tied together. That doesn't mean that no one will ever do that. It doesn't mean that they're not putting things in place so that they could do it in the future. And in answer to your question about are we doing it, we may be looking at other currencies and things, but we're not stealing other people's intellectual property, mostly because all the good stuff is on our systems.
All right. So, Kevin, here's the thing. I mean, if you look at where we are in the world today, 1 out of 10 financial exchanges don't have any protections in place whatsoever. Is that how a terrorist group or a nation that maybe wants to see the dollar fall, like China, maybe like Russia, is that how they would kind of infiltrate the U.S. Economic system via our exchanges?
Well, our exchanges are one way, and yes, in fact, there's a movie that's out based on a Tom Clancy character that shows that. But the reality of it is we are so interconnected globally. And right now, to date, everyone's had the same incentive to keep the dollar strong. But that's changing over time. So they could use cyber as a means of force multiplier when they're also dumping bonds and stopping using the dollar for trade in oil. There's multiple vulnerabilities for the dollar. Cyber is one of them.
You know, Steve, I had Governor Tom Ridge, used to run Homeland Security, of course, on the show. This is back in August. It was the day after the flash crash, Steve, and we were discussing this. And I asked him, you know, flat out, are we prepared? Is the administration doing enough? And he said, absolutely not. That was in August. It's now January, Steve. Is the situation still the same, do you think?
It pretty much is the same. Some businesses, the financial sector is one of our best sectors for critical infrastructure as far as cybersecurity, but it's still very vulnerable. This administration has spent a lot of time giving briefings, making pronouncements, but
Sure.
not a heck of a lot of effort or time fixing things.
Kevin Freeman, Stephen Bucci. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here on a very fascinating topic. We appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.